Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unfound Live for November 18th, 2020. I am your host, the humble Ed Densel, and we do the live show every Wednesday night. Been doing this for about 3 years. I enjoy doing it. It still occurs to me that I think that I am one of the few true crime host who actually does some sort of live show, weekly live show, in which I interact with all of you, the viewers and listeners, and talk about news and all sorts of different things. I don't think there are too many shows out there like this, and I don't know why, because I really enjoy doing this. So thank you, everybody who's going to be tuning in tonight, or anybody who's going to be watching this later in reruns. As you are watching tonight, I hope you will remember to like this video, give it the thumbs up on whatever device you're using. I would appreciate that. That helps the YouTube algorithms. And also, if you are not yet a subscriber to the channel, the YouTube, the Unfound Podcast Channel, where we all are right at this second, please do so. We got Tracy. Hello, Tracy. Karen, Angela, Mimi, Emily, Paula, Jasmine, Concha, Laura, Jill, Cherie with the wrench in case anybody gets out of line, Suzanne, Valerie, Ruth, and everybody, thank you for tuning in tonight. Now, I should tell you that I don't have many questions from the audience to answer tonight. So I am open to suggestions. Go put them right in the suggestion box there as to a question or questions, plural, that you would like me to answer, because you know I love answering those, maybe especially if they are unique questions, things that I haven't been asked before, and they don't have to necessarily have to do anything with true crime or missing persons. As long as they are PG and they're not too personal, I will give my best shot at answering them. But here, it's been beautiful the last few days here. Clearwater Beach, really, really nice. After a week ago, we had that tropical storm blow through. But since then, it has been absolutely beautiful. It's actually a little, I just walked out onto the east side of the building, and it's a little cool out there. I wouldn't say chilly. I'm not going to insult all of the northern viewers tonight. But it's cool out there, very pleasant. Maybe some people would have to put on a light jacket for the weather, but me, I think a t-shirt would be fine if I was going to be spending some time outside tonight. So it's absolutely beautiful. The sunset was gorgeous, not many clouds. And, you know, when the sun is coming down on, of course, the west side of the building, and when there's no clouds, so it's as bright as it can be, and the sun coming in, it's just magnificent. So, not rubbing it in. Hello, RA, with a little smiley face. Charlotte says, hello, Charlotte. How are you? Charlotte says, I've been bothered by the number of children of missing parents who end up not wanting anything to do with the missing parents' family. Do you have any ideas about why that happens so often? By the number of children who end up not wanting anything to do with the missing parents. Charlotte, I'd hate to make an entire blanket statement regarding that. I'm sure there's a variety of reasons. Once again, I've been bothered by the number of children of missing parents who end up not wanting anything to do with the missing parents' family. Do you have any ideas why that happens so often? I think it all depends, Charlotte. It may have to do with things that were going on even before the parent went missing. It could be that either the children or that family aren't the greatest people in the world. It could have something to do with the circumstances under which the disappearance happened. It may be that the missing parent's family thinks the children had something to do with it. The children think the family had something to do with it. It's just hard to say. So I'm not going to try to throw a blanket over that, the entire topic and say it's one reason. I'm sure it's a variety of reasons, and I would have to know the disappearance a little bit in depth before I could ever give you a really good answer that I think might be close to the answer. I think this is just I think it's no different than Christine, you don't have to apologize. It's no different than some of the disappearances we've had recently, like Angela Green or Marian Hurley from last Friday. Those are two disappearances that on the surface seem very similar. But I think that we proved by covering both the way we did that under the surface, they are quite different. So even in disappearances that seem similar like that, you can derive different things once you learn more information. So it's just tough to say. Charlotte, I was just wondering, because of those cases, we run into a lot of family issues like that, Charlotte, over the last 4 years. I think what is most common regarding families having friction about a disappearance is many times the person that I'm talking to as the guest for that program is the only person in the entire family who gives a dang. And everybody else in the family just wants it to go away. That is common. I wouldn't say it's in the majority. I wouldn't say like 60% of disappearances are like that, but I might say that 30% are. So it's just a lot of different, it seems weird to me, even after 4 years of doing almost 100, almost 200 disappearances. So I just don't know. Hello, Zebra. Cherie, a lot of it has to do with what the present parent had said about the missing parent. Yeah, right, Cherie. So, but I hope that answers that, Charlotte. It's just a tough question to answer. It's I think one of those things you have to go on a case by case basis. But like I said, it's been beautiful here today, the last few days, although I haven't been able to get out and throw the discs. I went on I went on Sunday to the club. Man, it seems like yesterday. But the last couple of days, just too busy doing stuff. Too busy. I went to Costco for the very first time this past Saturday. I know. Ed, you're 50 years old. That's your first time in Costco? The answer is yes. And I became a member there and did some shopping there. Got a lot of bulk items that I thought that I needed. And so that was really good. Got some frozen chicken wings there that I'm going to fry up. I'm doing that these days. So that was neat. Just kind of walking around. Everything is so big in there. I walked in there and I suddenly felt like, like Honey, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. It was kind of like that. It was like, Honey, I Shrunk Ed, and now he's in a grocery store. That's, things just pile the whole way to the ceilings and everything. The grocery carts are even bigger. I felt like I went, I'm 5'9", that's how tall I am. I felt like I shrunk down to like 3 feet tall. Everything got twice as big and I got half as big. So, but had a good time. I don't know how many times I'm going to be going over there. It actually is not very close to me, the nearest one, but I did go and do that and just kind of walked around and marveled at everything. But I'll probably continue just to go to my local Publix, but maybe for those bulk items that I want to get once in a while, I'll probably drive over there. But that was pretty cool. Mandy says, gorgeous here in DeBerry, Florida. Well, Mandy, I will have you know that next weekend I will be in DeBerry, Florida for a disc golf tournament. So I'm really looking forward to that. I've not played the courses over there yet. So I will be there next Friday, and I'll be playing Saturday and Sunday. Really looking forward to it. Big tournament, lots of players, and hopefully the weather is nice. I'm hoping, Mandy, that would be nice, although I have played in some windy and rainy conditions over the past month or 6 weeks. So I'm kind of used to it, but it would be nice. Hello, Kathy. Good to see you. Zebra says, oh my God, I know you had fun in Costco. I guess it was kind of fun. Cherie says, so you can fly on the jet. That's funny. What Cherie means is Costco has this thing going. If you want to spend, I think, $17,000, you can get a private jet membership. And I had posted something on my private Facebook page about that. And that would be cool. That could get me on a jet again, Cherie, just to be honest, because I don't like flying. But no, I did not get the jet the jet membership over at Costco. In fact, while I was over there, I even forgot it was available, to tell you the truth. But yes, they have that going on. All of you can Google that if you'd like. Hello, Ruth. Ruth says 79 here in Colorado. Well, I guess it's not snowing then, right? So that's nice. Colorado, very beautiful state. Been there on vacation like 30 some years ago. Drove through there at least once, driving across the United States. Very nice. Valerie, question: if another YouTuber has a video about an arrest like Steve Pankey, can I leave a comment to watch your interview with him, or would you prefer not? Valerie, I never have anything against people suggesting unfound episodes to other people. I would never get in the way of that. Now, you may get crap from the person's page or YouTube channel or whatever. You may get crap from that, but I would never stop anybody from suggesting that them watch or listen to an unfound episode ever. That's why we're here. Hello, Heather, giving me the wave. Hello, Heather. Assistant Heather. Hello, Heather. Elizabeth, do you think there will be a spike in missing persons cases for women due to the recession, the prevailing hopelessness? If so, how can we women protect ourselves? Well, it's been going on for a while, and at least here in the United States, as far as, is it a recession? Surely unemployment is up, but you wouldn't know that according to the stock market and a lot of other market indicators. So it's somewhere in between. When I think about that, Elizabeth, to portray it that way, recession and prevailing hopelessness, I would first think more about suicides and things, and not necessarily missing persons cases. If so, how can women protect themselves? I think the easiest way all of us can protect ourselves in times like these is just knowing that eventually this will pass. And you just have to be convinced of that. Easy for me to talk. I know a lot of people are affected by all of this a lot more than I am. But I think a healthy way to go through life, even though none of us make it out of here alive, but still, I think a healthy way is just to think that this too shall pass. And you just have to hope that things in 2021 will be better. I don't know if they're going to be, but we can hope. And as far as other things, as far as women protecting themselves, as I think all of you know, I am a gun owner. I carry a gun. I have multiple guns in various locations. And I believe that every woman, I know that some people are against that, but my opinion is that every woman should carry a gun. So that's the best way to protect yourself. And go to the range, learn how to handle it, learn how to shoot. You don't have to be a marksman. Just know how everything works and that you can work that gun under difficult circumstances. You don't have to be Annie Oakley at 100 yards. But if you can hit something within 30 feet with your gun, you'll probably be just fine. That's my suggestion. Elizabeth, we live in New York City. We cannot carry a gun outside our home. Then you might want to carry, I carry mace too. So I would recommend some sort of mace, pepper spray, something like that, Elizabeth, for personal protection for women in New York City. Yeah, you know, I'm all about women getting defense classes and everything. Absolutely. All of the women that are in my life who are friends, they all know the suggestions that I've made to them about protecting themselves. If they live in a situation where laws allow them to protect themselves to the fullest extent. Jill says 90 degrees here. It wasn't 90 here today, Jill. Maybe in the high 70s. You're welcome, Valerie. Mandy says gun owner. Yeah, Charlotte, I don't have a gun yet, but I'm wanting to get one. Yeah. The thing is right now is that if you're in the market for a gun, be prepared to pay above retail prices. Demand is high. And that's just the way it is right now. So I don't know if that will change. And ammunition is hard to find, although I did find some good deals online just within the last few days. Elizabeth says pepper spray and pen knives. Yeah, just be sure how to do it. Just don't carry it. Learn how to use it and practice. Yeah. Cherie says, keep your head on a swivel. Always. I haven't said that for a while, Cherie. Keep your head on a swivel. That's one of the best ways. Be aware. Be aware. You're coming out of a grocery store. Don't have your nose and your eyes down in your phone. Be looking around. I don't care if it's day. I don't care if it's night. I don't care if you've been to the grocery store 1,000 times. I don't care if it's a nice neighborhood. Everything else. I don't care. You keep your head on a swivel, looking around, being aware of the cars behind you, people in front of you, to your sides. You get to your car, you put your stuff in your car as quickly as you can, you get in and you lock it. And while you're putting your groceries in, you're always looking around. Don't get so focused on the task. You put a bag in, look around, see what's going around. Be aware. I do that just naturally, but some people do not. Mimi says, I never travel without my Sig Sauer 380. She's a 380 lady. Okay, Mimi. I put in a couple of windows that I have cameras in my home. It's a good thing too, Twinkle. And so, yeah, that's, I think, my best advice there, Elizabeth. And then something that I have not mentioned, I didn't want to mention it while it was going on, but my dad actually had COVID. He got it early October. And he's now through it. He was 83 years old. I think he got it when he went to, he met some of my mother's friends down in Leechburg, where I grew up. I think that's where he got it from someone. And he's fine, though. I mean, it was not pleasant. He did go to the hospital once, but he had no breathing problems. What he mainly had was a lot of sinus drainage. He felt very, very, very tired, headaches, but no breathing issues. A lot of, when I would talk to him, some drainage. So he was coughing, a lot of sniffling and everything, but his voice was strong, which, as long as your voice is strong, that usually means that your lungs are okay. And he just toughed it out. He's pretty much fine now, 83 years old. So he had it. He got diagnosed with it. He knew something was going on. He wasn't feeling right. He went to the emergency room. They swabbed him, said, yep, you have COVID. Couldn't do much for him. But I'm not surprised he got it, because I know that he hasn't been following all the protocols that older people should be. He just outright told me that. But I talked to him today. He's pretty much fine. I mean, he's 83, but he's pretty much fine and got through it. In contrast to I think we all know people who are much younger than that who have suffered a lot more, if not died from it. So it is a very strange virus, strange disease. Some people can get it and show no symptoms. Some people, young people, get it, and it's, of course, life-threatening. Of course, it's very lethal to older people. And then you have people like my dad who had it for a month and were like, I mean, like I said, I mean, he was really, 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 down. But just he's recovered from it. So I feel very fortunate that he did. But you also have to understand that my dad doesn't have any pre-existing conditions. He doesn't have cancer. He's never had any heart issues, anything like that. So he's a very otherwise healthy guy for 83. So that certainly helped. And he's in really remarkable condition for his age. He's going to be 84 on December 1st. And I think that's a combination of good genetics. And he's a little bit of a hypochondriac anyway. And, he stopped smoking like 30 years ago. And he did a lot of things that now at 83, 84, he still has his mind. So he's very fortunate, because I think if some of those other things had happened earlier in his life, who knows how things could have gone. Heather says, Mimi is 100 pounds and needs to have protection all the time. I didn't know that, Heather. Twinkle says, Dad is a tough man. Well, I guess he is, Twinkle. He can be, he can be sometimes. He can be a tough guy sometimes. Valerie says, the news is saying COVID positive moms can breastfeed their babies. Makes no sense. Kind of scary. I haven't seen that. Paula says, my quarantine ended the 28th of October. I had one day where I felt like I had the flu. I was quarantining from my parents since I had flown. So thankfully I didn't spread it. Good for you, Paula. Glad you recovered. Mandy says, my in-laws both got it in their 60s. And my mother-in-law has a low immune system. Never went to the hospital and fine. Now they're actually coming to visit Florida from Louisiana this weekend. Well, Florida, we're tending to go do things a little looser than many other states. That's what they've decided to do here. And one way or another doesn't bother me because I don't go out that much anyway. Thank you, Mandy. Charlotte, I have friends that have had it and recovered here in Lima. Twinkle, my dad is 92 and still living in his home. Good for him. He's trucking along, Twinkle. Glad to hear that. I keep saying my dad's going to live to be 100. Not much doubt in my mind. Charlotte, you're very fortunate to still have your dad. I am. Wish my mom was still around too, but that's not how things worked out. Just not the way it went. Fishing, finally catching your live show. Great job that you do. Thank you, Fishing. Good to see you. Fishing in the dark. In contrast to Fishing, I would like to hear more about your name. Why is it Fishing in the dark? Why is it not fishing on the ocean or fishing in the daytime? I want to hear more about that. I'm into fishing as long as it means taking a trip to Canada. I don't do hardly any fishing in the United States. So I would like to hear more about that. So those are some things going on in my private life. I got some new shoes from my brother Brian to play disc golf in because I've totally just about destroyed the other ones, but they were so good. The shoes that I've been using have been so good. I'm sorry to see them finally fall apart. I hope these new ones last and are as good as the old ones are. I'll continue to wear the old ones until they finally rip apart. And I'll have the new ones, waiting in the wings. But it just got to the point where I seriously was going on this golf course thinking, what am I going to do if one of these shoes shreds when I'm out on the disc golf course? What am I going to do? So I thought it was time. So I went and got some shoes. So that's pretty much what's been going on with me. Next Thursday, of course, we will do a show. Next Thursday before Thanksgiving. But my brother and his wife will be having Thanksgiving. So I will be going over there a week from tomorrow. And I guess they'll be cooking. I suppose I'll bring something over. I don't know what. But so that'll be 2:00 next Thursday. So I'm looking forward to that. That's about all I have planned for Thanksgiving. And so, Paula, I think I answered your question there. You posted, can we get an update on your dad and plans for Thanksgiving? I think I covered both of those without even trying, Paula. How about that? So those are my plans for Thanksgiving, and that's how my dad is doing. I don't know what his plans are for Thanksgiving. My sister's birthday is tomorrow. Of course, I would never tell you how old she is, but her birthday's tomorrow. Her name is Diane, and she lives in Ohio. I just saw her, as you know, last month. In fact, she and her husband are supposed to be back down here next month. So we'll see. Cherie says, you and me go fishing in the dark. Is that like Dancing in the Dark from Bruce Springsteen, Cherie? Is that what that is? Charlotte says, I love the song. Okay. I just think Dancing in the Dark from Bruce Springsteen. I'm not a real big Bruce Springsteen fan. Puma says, Ed wouldn't know that song. It's country. That is true, Puma. That is true. Yeah, happy birthday to my sister, Diane. Of course, as everybody knows, she is older than I am. But you'd never know. You'd never guess how old she is, ever. She looks fantastic for her age. So let's move on to some items, the agenda for tonight. Man, almost a half hour in, and we've not gotten to the agenda. The Marian Hurley poll, that was the disappearance we covered this past Friday. Disappearance that happened in Granbury, Texas. I thank Sherry and Kelly, her neighbors and friends, of being on the program. And I thought it came out really, really well. They thought it came out really, really well. The poll that was put in the group was, where is Marian now? And I give a variety of choices. Is she buried in the park? Is she buried in the on the golf course? Is she some deceased but somewhere else? Or did she really ride off into the sunset with someone? And did she live many days? Maybe it's been 20 years, but could she have lived a lot longer, past the day of her disappearance? Maybe she died from natural causes or something. Majority of you picked that she was buried in the park. And I have to admit, I'm a little confused by that. I mean, I put it as an option, and I realized that a few people might pick it, but that so many people picked it leaves me the impression maybe that many people did not watch the video that I did regarding where they were living, where the golf course is, where the park is, and kind of explain those different areas. I think maybe the confusion was that when people heard they went, it means that they went out to some state park, national park, of course, hundreds, if not thousands of acres. And that's not, if you went and looked at the map, that's really not the kind of park they went to. It is more like your local, I wouldn't necessarily say local park, like they plunk right down in the middle subdivision or something like that. It's more as it is, there's a dam there. And usually, I even know growing up in Leechburg, Pennsylvania, there was a very small dam near where I grew up called Crooked Creek Dam. And there's a park there, but it's not very big. And that's kind of the place that they went. So I can see some of the people believing that maybe that's where she was put, but it stretches my imagination that if we were to believe that Will is responsible for her disappearance, that he would go about digging a hole in a local park. That's something that seems to me that would stick out. So maybe I didn't explain it right. Maybe it wasn't clear in the interview. I don't know. In the think tank, if you don't know what the think tank is, you can go to patreon.com/Unfound Podcast to find out and join, become a Patreon member. Majority of the people thought that she is in the golf course or somewhere else. But the real interesting part was that, and being that Sheree is in here, is that we talked about whether this disappearance was planned or unplanned. And, you know, the more we got into that conversation in the think tank on Sunday evening, the more it became obvious is that you really, if you don't think it was planned, that takes you off on one direction. If you think it was planned, it takes you off in almost the complete opposite direction. And that can really affect what you believe happened, what caused Marian's disappearance, where she is now, and everything that Will said afterwards. I think that's what we discovered. So we had an interesting, that was what we spent most of the time on Sunday evening. It wasn't where is Marian now if she is deceased. It was more trying to examine everything that happened before she disappeared and then after she disappeared, and trying to determine if Will did this. Did he plan it? Didn't he plan it? And so we had a really in-depth, good conversation on that. But that's what we do in the think tank. And if that sounds interesting to you, you should go to patreon.com/Unfound Podcast and join. I would appreciate that. Thank you, Valerie. Fishing, you are missing some great catching fishing at night. So much fun, not much law out. Are you doing illegal things out there fishing? Is that what you're saying? Not much law out at night, so you can do things out there that shouldn't be done? Is that what you're saying? Oh, not much law out. So much fun, not much law out. Not fish, sorry. Okay. Angela, I interpreted as missing where they supposedly went. Okay, Angela. Thank you for posting that, Sheree. Puma, did they even really go to the park, or was that just the cover story? We talked about that too, Puma. We only have one person's word, Will's. Nobody saw them there. The oldest of the two daughters really said they went somewhere, but she wouldn't probably know one park from another. So, Puma, you're right. And we discussed that as well. Thank you for bringing that up. Great discussion in the think tank. Fishing says no, not breaking the law out. Not much law out. Fish, sorry. Okay, just checking, fishing. Just checking. Because I saw that not much law out. Like, I guess, what would that be? Park rangers or the fishing commission? I know they have a fishing commission in Pennsylvania, making sure that people are following the laws as far as the size of fish and not taking the really, really teeny ones out. And of course, we know some people bring, I don't know, fireworks and things and throw them into the water and they explode and the fish come to the surface. You know, I get all, I'm thinking you would never do that fishing. Okay. So that was the discussion of Marian Hurley's disappearance. And I don't think that there was much of a question what most people believe. They think that her husband had something to do with it, whether it was planned or unplanned. Was it something that went too far? Was it an accident? I don't think it's crazy to think that, but if there was solid evidence of that, I don't think he would have been a free man for the last 21 years, and he continues to be a free man living in California. Okay, let's move on to this. It's going to be a long, this topic seems we cover this once in a while. Jennifer Kesse, right after last week's live show, I think the next day, Thursday, some new pictures came out from Fishing says, no, not me. Just a lot of fun. Well, I'm glad you're having fun fishing. I'd also like to hear what you're fishing for when you're going out there. I'd like to hear about that. There were new pics that came out. One important one in particular of Jennifer's car. And it was a picture of the hood. And I have to say, it appears that her car was very dirty at the time of her disappearance. I can relate. And there were marks on the hood in which the dirt, I don't know, dust or whatever it is that was on the car, and it's a dark color car, so dark color cars seem to show the dirt more. There were brush marks where it seemed some of the dirt had been wiped off. And the comment was made that came out with the article is that, and I even listened to an interview today with Jennifer's father, being interviewed by a reporter, and I thank Charisse for sending it to me, that were reporters asking him about it. And he says that he was talking to a detective, and the detective, he asked him, what do you make of that? And the detective pointed at the car and said, well, that's our murder scene right there on that hood of that car. So many things to say. I think if you've been watching the live show for a while, Jennifer's disappearance, I'm going to say, comes up once every few months. And I continue to have the same belief that I did way back, not long after she disappeared, and it kind of became news. And I think I continue to be in the minority on this, is that I'm not convinced she disappeared on that Tuesday morning. I'm convinced that she disappeared on Monday night. Because and the reason I think I even feel that more of that way now is because just within the last 6 weeks, was it 48 hours or one of those shows, did a long segment, devoted a lot of time to Jennifer's disappearance. I did not watch it. I know Cherie watched it. Maybe some of my other assistants watched it. All I did was read the transcript, which was online, and I read it a few times. And the Kesseys and their private investigator's last name is Toretta, and he coincidentally is from right here in the Tampa area, were asked about, and the car pictures did not come up in this show. I think because the pictures didn't come out until after that. Whether the Kesseys didn't know about this picture at the time of the filming of the program, whether the PI didn't know about it, I can't equate all of that. And you just have to remember that if you're not familiar with TV production or film production, any type thing like that, usually those programs are filmed many weeks before they are ever aired. So being that it came out in October, they might have filmed it this past summer or something. Maybe, I don't know, but I know there's certainly some lead time, having been involved in that earlier in my life when I was in Las Vegas. But even at that time, and we have to remember it's been roughly 15 years since Jennifer disappeared, is that even during that show just recently that came out, the private investigator says his theory is that as soon as she left her apartment, she was attacked and dragged into another apartment, maybe even right across the hall from where she was living. That's how close. When they say after she left her apartment, not down the steps from her apartment, not down by her car, but right there by her apartment. This is what the private investigator said. He just said that. It just came out. And now we have a picture that they're now saying, oh, wait a minute. No, she did make it out to her car, and there was a fight on the hood of her car. I'm just wondering how far the investigators and the Kesseys are going to push people into try to believing that she was attacked that morning. Because I think, although I don't believe it, I can see why some people, if they don't maybe aren't familiar with disappearances, they can maybe wrap their mind around the idea of she was leaving her apartment. She's walking toward her car. Some guys are there, whether they are Caucasians, Latinos, Mexicans, Hispanics, any other demographic, whatever, and diverse group, I don't care. And this group attacks her and something happens. We know that women get attacked like that all the time. Now, the reason, of course, I dispute that is because I'm trying to wrap my head around the idea that she was attacked in the, on her way to her car and nothing fell out of her purse, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But after all that, her phone ends up in her car, which if you understand disappearances better, you know how odd that is. So I can understand that. I can even understand why some people might believe that she was attacked as soon as she was leaving. They were just like waiting for her. We know that happened in Jody Huisentruit's case, for example. But once again, in Jody's, that person was waiting for her. She made it out to her car. How do we know? Because everything she owned was strewn all over the parking lot, unlike Jennifer Kesse's. But now it seems that the Kesse family and their private investigator, who has no experience in missing persons cases that I could find, he has a lot of experience with drug enforcement, which is totally different than missing persons cases. They're now saying, oh no, she made it out to her car and there was a fight on the hood of her car. And I don't want to be flippant about this, but the people who believe the Kesseys, are we then supposed to believe, if it comes out somewhere down the road, that we believe Jennifer was running all over the apartment complex and these guys were chasing her? Are they supposed to believe that too? Because at some point, I mean, they can keep saying, well, nobody heard anything. Well, nobody saw anything. I suppose under those certain other circumstances, I think people can wrap their head around it. But it gets to the point where they're trying to now say 15 years later, oh no, there was a fight on her hood of her car. Nobody heard anything. Nobody saw anything. Nothing. It just continues to stretch. It stretches my imagination. Not to mention that just recently they had their own theory and now they're just, I guess, throwing that one out. Because if she was, as the private investigator said, attacked right at the door as she came out and locked her door and then they got her, then why would there be a fight at the car? If she was attacked halfway to her car, how did that all happen on her car? Don't know. We have to also remember some other things. Is that car, as I said, very dirty. We don't know when those marks were made on the car. We don't know when all that stuff got brushed off it. Maybe it was Jennifer herself. Maybe the day before she had set her stuff on her car, her purse and everything, and for some reason, wiped some of the dirt off that's possible. Or we also have to remember that her car sat in the other complex for 2 days. Maybe some people came along, saw this car, saw that it was dirty, looked like it was abandoned, had never seen it before, and they just sat on it. I know I have an example just from my own life. It didn't happen to me, but my good friend Cameron, his girlfriend, his wife now, but at the time, his girlfriend, maybe a couple years ago, where they were living, she had her car parked out in the street. She comes out the next day, and some guy had come out, had just been walking down the street, walked up over her car. Footprints, dented the hood, dented the roof. I don't think they even found out who did that. But these kinds of things happen if you park your car out there somewhere. Now, I've been very fortunate. I have a protected parking place where I live now. Where I used to live, the car was not parked on the street. It was backed up right against my front door. So it's a little harder in those situations, maybe, for your car to be vandalized. And there's lighting and everything else. But if a car is sitting in a bad area of town like hers was for 2 days, and it looked like the car hadn't been washed for a while, then those marks could have come from anywhere. So, it confuses me because we know how contentious the relationship has been between the Kesseys and the Orlando Police Department. My perception is that the Kesseys, usually reject anything the Orlando Police Department says. But as soon as the Orlando Police Department points at the hood of the car and says, yeah, that's where the crime scene, that's a crime scene right there, the Kesseys are like, oh, yeah, that's right. It just seems weird to me. It just seems weird. I got to tell you, I only know what all of you know. I'm certainly hoping that the Kesseys, given everything that they've done, know more than we do. But the more things happen, the more I'm convinced they don't. And as was stated in this interview, maybe we should have posted that in the group. Maybe, Cherie, you could do that. It was Dateline, 48 hours. Thank you, Cherie. It was not 48 hours. It was Dateline. Thank you, Cherie. The Kesseys have admitted that they've spent like $750,000 over the last 15 years trying to find her. $750,000. This is why I tell all of my guests I wouldn't spend a dime on anything. I don't know where that got started. I know I probably didn't start saying that at the beginning of Unfound's existence, but sometime I'm going to guess between 2016 and about 2018, I came to that conclusion for some reason. That my guests, they shouldn't spend money on anything. They should do these things themselves, as hard as that is. Because I realize every parent out there wants to find their child. I get it. I get it. And I'm not saying that they should put, well, if I have to spend over this, then I guess we can't find her. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is spending money guarantees nothing. Throwing money at a problem rarely fixes it. And of course, most of our guests on Unfound don't have $750,000 to spend on anything. So I can see spending money because sometimes you have to spend money for FOIAs. I can see spending money, to research, like get a, membership to a database or something like that. That makes a lot of sense. But that total is probably going to be $100, $200 maybe total. And maybe there might be a monthly subscription or something like that. But $750,000 is crazy. Crazy. And it should never have been done. It's easy to say now. I'm not here to make them feel bad. But I hope that for all those people out there who don't have that kind of money, that have lost children, and they think, well, if we just had more money, this would be solved by now. The Jennifer Kesse disappearance is proof that that's not necessarily true. What solves disappearances is having the right ideas, looking at the facts objectively, and doing your own work. And not getting in fights with the police. That's what usually works. For example, Kathy Turkanian. Of course, she now knows what happened to her daughter, Alexis, also known as Andrea Bowman. To my knowledge, I don't think that Kathy Turkanian, in the 10 years since she found out about Alexis missing in 2010, I don't think she spent, I'm going to exaggerate, but I don't think she spent a dime. I don't think she did. Melinda Campos. Of course, Zoe was found murdered, buried in the backyard of Carlos Rodriguez. I don't think she spent a dime. Spending money doesn't solve missing persons cases. In fact, I don't think spending money solves any type of case. It's not guaranteed. And I feel horrible. I feel horrible, horrible, horrible. Even though I don't agree with the Kesseys, from what I know about what they've said and everything, I feel horrible for them that they got in their idea at some point that we have to start spending money because that's what's going to bring our daughter home. And all these years later, they have nothing to show for it. It makes me feel horrible. Horrible. I just think that they've gone off on some wrong tangents on this. So I just don't get. I just don't get it. Yeah, I'm looking over at my notes right at this second, and to believe that there was a fight on her hood of her car, I mean, just how isolated was Jennifer's apartment? I realize, once again, I'm not an expert on it. I realize that there are people who are an expert on this. People, amateurs who've taken a great interest in it, figuring out what apartment she was in. And I mean, how close was the nearest lived-in apartment? Not by one of those people that was working there, but an actual person with a lease. How close was the nearest one? Did she not have a downstairs neighbor or something else? I realized they were still doing construction and landscaping and everything else, but we're getting this picture as if Jennifer was living in an apartment like on the entire opposite side of the complex where nobody else was living. Maybe that's the situation, but that would be news to me. So, I mean, just how isolated was this, that all of these things could happen? Nobody saw anything. And as far as this thing about some woman saying, yeah, she saw the car leaving driving erratically, I just totally dismiss it. The woman didn't know Jennifer, didn't know her car. And then she suddenly remembers, oh yeah, I just don't know. And I can go into all the permutations why that doesn't make sense either, but I'm just not going to get into that. But this new picture and then the revelation that all this money is spent, if any of my guests or Unfound's guests are watching this tonight, this is why I told you, don't spend any money. Just don't. Cherie said, did not look like a violent struggle to me. Personally, my car has looked like that on many occasions. Mine too, Cherie. Hello, Carrie. Dateline, once again, it was Dateline where they covered Jennifer Kesse's disappearance. If you can't find the video, there is a transcript of it somewhere online that I read. Hello, Ellie. Carrie says, wouldn't the fight on the hood be obvious? That's what I think. That's what I think, Carrie. Jasmine says, I agree with it. Does not add up. No, I don't think it does add up, Jasmine. I don't think it does. Carrie, more up to be attacked at night versus the day. I'm not saying that a fight couldn't have happened on the car, but if we're going to be if they're going to try to convince us that the fight happened in broad daylight at 8:30 in the morning in an apartment complex, and there was a fight, which means, she's struggling. She's probably screaming and nobody hears anything. And none of her stuff gets spilled out, or if it does get spilled out, the attackers took the time to pick it all up and throw it in the car or anything else. It flies in the face of Jody Huisentruit's disappearance and a whole host of others that we know that are abductions that look exactly different, opposite. So, I don't know. Maybe a fight did happen on her car, but maybe it was the night before, and maybe it was somewhere else. Ellie says Jennifer was watched and targeted in my analysis. Ellie, I just wish there was proof of that. Valerie, Las Vegas is full of opportunities. I professionally danced in shows in my 30s. Okay, Valerie. Suzanne, kind of like if no one is in a forest and a huge tree falls, does it make a noise? Yes, it does. Ellie, I naively moved to a certain area across from apartments with a clear view. The day we were attacked, we had gone shopping, took in bags, and they came. Carrie, I had some random sit on the hood of my car at a park. Exactly. Charlotte, from what I've heard about Jennifer Kesse's case, there were men carrying a rolled up carpet. They thought that maybe the car wasn't hers. Well, that can prove to be a complete. They looked into that, Charlotte. And the carpet was not dropped in some pond or lake. They sent divers down there. The carpet wasn't found. And of course, Jennifer wasn't found. I don't know. Did they throw the carpet in there and then go back in there and get it? I don't know. Carpets and people rolled up in carpets and things sounds like something from Hollywood, not from reality. I'm not saying there's never been a person rolled up in a carpet. I'm saying that if they were really doing that, why would they let anybody see them? How much of it was legal fees against Orlando PD? I don't know the specific breakdown, Carrie, unfortunately. Sure, good question, Carrie, because today Mr. Kesse said most of the work on the case has been pro bono. I wonder how that $750. I'd like to see the budget for that budget breakdown for $750,000. Ellie says, I believe in the case she was watched like I was, unknowingly, but in the clear watch of bad folks, the construction made an easy way to transport a body has been my gut feeling all this time. Ellie, totally entitled in my opinion, but really I could not disagree more. Carrie, in an area as populated as Orlando, I have a hard time believing she was isolated. Ellie, with illegals in construction, is perplexing to even properly come up with perps. We're not going to get into the legal situation. As I've stated many times, I think that the men working in that construction in the complex are targeted simply because they were illegals, not because there's any proof that any of them broke any laws. Okay? I can't help but think if they were all known to be American citizens and they were Caucasians and not from somewhere else, that I don't know if any of them would be thought of as suspects at all. I'm not convinced of that. That's why I've stayed away from that. There's something about it that focusing on them that seems wrong. Shree, I will post it. Thank you. Shree's going to post this interview that Mr. Kesse did with Orlando TV, maybe today, yesterday, something. Satin B, hello, and everyone. So sorry I ran late. I love it. People get to the show late and they apologize. No need to apologize, Satin B. I appreciate you showing up. Thank you for making the time. And of course, as you know, you can go back and watch it from the beginning whenever you want. Ellie says witnesses are not always trustworthy. Totally true. Ruth, Rulard has the second highest amount of missing persons cases. That wouldn't surprise me given that we are the third most populous state. So that makes a lot of sense. Sheree, great point, Ed. Well, I'm trying to make great points. Every time I come here on Wednesday night, I'm trying to make great points. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes I don't. So that's where we stand. Once again, on Jennifer Kesse's disappearance. Why those pictures didn't come out too recently, picture in particular didn't come out too recently, I don't know. But once again, I think that this new information that pops up in this case sends people in the wrong direction, because I think that people are trying to make facts fit a theory, not theory fit the facts. I'm going to continue to say that. Let's move on to this. I'm going to have to talk about this. Now, I'll talk about this next. Tomorrow night, as some of you already know, but I'm going to say it again, I will be on the show with Dr. Grace Telesco. Can't wait. 7 p.m. Eastern on their YouTube channel, not my YouTube channel or our YouTube channel or Unfound's YouTube channel. On Dr. Telesco's channel, the Fischler College of Education and School of Criminal Justice YouTube channel. That's where it will be playing live. And then shortly after that, it will also be on Unfound's channel for the rerun, 7 o'clock Eastern. And we will be discussing the disappearance of Robin Abrams. This is a disappearance that Grace picked out on her own. I gave her like a list of 5. This is the one she picked out. Last night, I re-listened to the entire episode that I did way back in 2016, almost exactly 4 years ago, with Robin's sister, Jody. In fact, I talked to Jody today. And I can assure you during the interview tomorrow, we're going to be naming names. You should know today. Thank you for posting that. That is the link to Dr. Telesco's YouTube channel right there. So make sure everybody saves that. Thank you, Cherie. You should know today I got to talk to a police officer who was on duty at the time of Robin's disappearance. Talked to him for about an hour. And let me just tell you, what he had to tell me was disgusting. Disgusting. The amount, what I'm going to say is in that original interview 4 years ago, I don't think we scratched the surface as to how much corruption was going on in the Will County, W-I-L-L, Will County Sheriff's Department in Illinois at the time of Robin's disappearance. Didn't scratch the surface 4 years ago. But we're surely going to scratch the surface tomorrow night. It's really disgusting. And if you go back and listen to that, maybe before tomorrow night, and I did post a link to it in the group and on the page on Facebook, that the prevailing theory for a long time has been that Robin was murdered because she had a jilted lover, Tony Marquez. They were a couple. She finds out that he's married and she dumps him. And so he goes after her with the help of other police officers, pulling her over, harassing her, throwing her in jail, trumped up charges against her and everything. And in return, she files a sexual harassment suit, illegal termination suit against Will County. It's clear to me now that the reason she was made to disappear was not necessarily because of jilting Tony Marquez. It's clear to me now that the reason they had to make her disappear is because in that suit, had it gone to a trial, it would have surely exposed all of the corruption going on in that sheriff's department at the time. And we're talking multiple deputies and the sheriff himself. That is clear to me after listening to what this guy told me today. And I think he's believable. Jody trusts him very much, so she wanted me to talk to him. It's disgusting. And we'll be talking about it tomorrow night, and I will be interested to hear Dr. Telesco, being former NYPD, her attitudes about what we're going to talk about and what happens when you have a group of corrupt officers and all the good officers don't want to do anything about it. So once again, tomorrow night, we'll be discussing the disappearance of Robin Abrams. And man, this is one that I wish, most of these guys who were doing this at the time are still alive. And it would be nice that they were brought to justice. I don't know if we're ever going to be able to prove what they did to Robin, but for the corruption and all of the mafia ties and everything that was going on in Will County at the time, it would be nice if all of these guys could be brought to justice. Being that most of them are still around. It was bad. And I don't know what's going on now, but I know it was bad at the time. So you can look forward to that tomorrow night. So tomorrow night, 7 p.m., at the link that Shuri has already posted, Fischler College of Education and School of Criminal Justice. I always want to make sure I get those right. Okay. Ellie says, in my robbery, the police were able to figure out the apartments across from me held the key. They watched us. Their fingerprints confirmed it. I felt so isolated, happy my kids were alive. Very lucky, Ellie. Sheree says, just thankful not to be part of the discussion. Okay. Laura says, nice to see you live again, though a little late. That's okay, Laura. Sheree says, interesting. Looking forward to that discussion. Me too. Yeah. Okay. So that's tomorrow night. Next, Unfound Now. Did another one. I had told Sheree maybe a month ago to do an Unfound Now on Corey Dale, and I finally got around to it. From Stanford, North Carolina. He disappeared about 2.5 months ago. He walked off, said he was at his mother's, so said he was going to take a shower. She checks on him later. He's gone. His wallet and his phone are gone. And in that, I just kind of went through my thinking and trying to illustrate to anybody who watched it the main points that you look for in this type of disappearance. The wallet and the phone being brought missing as well is a main point, in contrast to many disappearances we talk about where the wallet and the phone are left behind. Those mean things. We don't have, of course, unfortunately, we don't have any cell phone information that's been made public, so that makes it a little difficult. So I went through those steps that we go through when we look at disappearances and the conclusions we draw from anything that's out in the public. That's what we do. And that is the purpose of Unfound Now. Number one, raise awareness about the disappearance. 2, teach people about disappearances. That's what Unfound Now is for. Man, my nose is itchy. And I hope you found it informative, and I'm sure I'll do one in December. Have not picked a disappearance out yet. In fact, maybe that disappearance hasn't even happened yet. So we'll just have to see. So I was glad to get another one done. It had been a little while, and finally had some time to talk about Corey Dale more. It does feel like it is kind of a drug disappearance, but I could be wrong. Next, I did a map analysis going back through those old Unfound episodes, and I did a map for Mandy Stokes, who disappeared from Oakland, California. What was it, 2007? 13 years ago. Did a map analysis for that. What I found most interesting in doing that particular video is that the explanations, man, this nose of mine. The explanation, some of the things that we took for granted regarding her disappearance, when you look at the locations, it doesn't quite make sense. For example, there's a story out there that when she was on the phone talking to her boyfriend who was on the East Coast, looking into the pings, what police determined is that she was just driving around the parking lot of her apartment. Well, when you go to find where she lived, there is no parking lot. So she may have been driving around the block, but that is different than driving around her parking lot. Because the next point is that what the boyfriend said is that right in the middle of their conversation, the phone cut out. And when he tried to call her back, no pickup, nothing. So why would it be that in the middle of a conversation, while she's driving around out in the block around the street, their phone would die? Did it die? Did the battery run out? Maybe. Maybe. And a lot of people think that her brother is the cause of her disappearance. Maybe she parked her car, went back up there to charge her phone, and got into it again with her brother, and something happened. Totally possible. But some of that explanation about her driving around in the parking lot, that's just not true, because there is no parking lot. The other part was where her car was found. It's a 4-lane, 2 lanes going each way, and it was parked on this street right next to this ravine, 2 miles from where she lived. How long exactly did that car sit there? It couldn't have been, you encounter a car that's just parked on a 4-lane, so everybody's having to drive around it. I would think that car is going to get called in very quickly, and it's going to get towed away very quickly. So I would think that whoever let 911 know that it was there, it had to have been put there not long before the call came in. But this kind of flies in the face of other things about the disappearance. So I just don't know. In going over my notes from that, I did not listen to the episode, but going over my notes from that time and then looking at that and really analyzing it. And that's why I'm going back through and doing this analysis of it. And that's why I tend, of course, do it these days with every new episode if I think it's, helpful. There's just some things that don't make sense. What people have said, what the articles have said, that's a Disappeared episode. What Disappeared said, in contrast to actually looking at the locations, and no, something doesn't square. But I did my best. I hope you found it informative. And if you go back and listen to Mandy's episode that came out sometime in 2017, I think you will see what I'm talking about, or hear what I'm talking about. Hear it and see it. Last Friday, we had some Spotify issues. And what that means, for some of you who don't use Spotify, this will not be relevant, but I know some of you do. I'm a Spotify subscriber. I love Spotify, listen to my music, especially the new AC/DC album. Only 6 minutes of the Marian Hurley episode were uploaded to Spotify. And so a couple people sent me, hey, what's going on? This happens sometimes. What happens is I upload the file to Podomatic, and then the file goes from Podomatic to Spotify. I don't send the file directly to Spotify. It goes to Podomatic, and then they send it to Spotify. And sometimes there is a communication problem. It hasn't happened for a while, but it happens. I'm going to say it happened at least one other time this year. If there's a communication breakdown, if the internet goes down or something, then Spotify doesn't get the whole file. It may only get 6 minutes or half hour or something. And the only way to fix it is for me to upload the entire file with all of the data and everything again. So that's what I had to do. Kind of out of my hands why that happens on Spotify, but on the other hand, I'm the only person can fix it. So I'm not responsible. I'm not the cause of the problem, but I'm the one that has to fix it. You got to love that. But we got it fixed, and I think it was fixed before Friday was over. But it does happen. And to my knowledge, that's the only place that has happened like that. So if you are Spotify, like I said, if that happens, if you are a Spotify listener and you listen to Unfound on Spotify, which I think is a good choice, if you encounter that, please let me know. But just understand that it takes a little while to fix it. It may take an hour to fix it. Understand that. Let's see here. Carrie says, do phone records support that? Regarding Mandy Stokes's, I think they do, Carrie. I don't think that the boyfriend is a suspect at all. I think they've proven that he was like 3,000 miles away. But I've not heard anything about her ever making any calls or texts after that call. But going back, I don't think that I know that I never saw any phone records or anything like that. So you want to re-listen to that episode, I urge everybody to go back and listen to the older episodes, especially if they are a new listener finding Unfound for the first time. Carrie says her Mandy's car would be towed here as soon as law enforcement got on the scene if it was impeding traffic. It surely was impeding traffic. Surely. Ruth says digging a grave is hard, which usually why killers hide the bodies or dig shallow graves. Doubt they would dig one in the park. Going back to Marian Hurley's disappearance, Ruth, I think you're right. Especially in a park that's only that big. I can see in a national park somebody going in there with a shovel, and but in a local park, that seems to me to be very risky. Carrie, I was bamboozled by that. Kiddo and I was on an hour-long drive, was listening, and poof, it was gone. Oh, so you're a Spotify listener, Carrie. Yeah. We got it fixed, but it took a while. Twinkle, does it take a long time to upload the file to Podomatic? Not usually. Sometimes it does. It took a much longer time when I lived in Madeira Beach because my Wi-Fi down there was a lot slower. The Wi-Fi where I live here is a lot faster, but it's not perfect. Most of the time, there are no issues. Sometimes there are, although it's been a while. I would say it takes about 15 minutes to upload a file to Podomatic, usual length, let's say a 2-hour episode, Twinkle. Depends a lot on the file size. But once Podomatic gets it, it doesn't automatically send it to Spotify. I think somebody has to hit a button or something. And so it may take an hour from me uploading to Podomatic to the file getting to Spotify. I say this about iTunes. iTunes is the same way. I send it to Podomatic. They send it to iTunes. So these things take time. Ellie says, I do love that through subtle facts, you were able to keenly define the keen details that will solve cases. That's what we're trying to do, Ellie. And former Granbury resident, I wonder if he put her in the lake. That did come up, and it very well could be that he put her in there, and then maybe the dam was open. There's no facts to support that. There's no facts to deny that. Wouldn't be my first choice. But maybe. You could have put her in there, but, weighing a body down and making sure that it stays down, and we have to remember it's not a lake, it's a reservoir, so it does go up and down depending on how much flow is going. Would he really want to risk that? It's just not easy to make a determination on that. Once again, this is one of those issues where I think the public perception about getting rid of bodies and bodies of water is greatly pushed forward by Hollywood TV shows. And it's a lot harder than people think. It's no different than when, like, you're watching a James Bond movie and he puts the silencer on his gun, and when he pulls the trigger, it's just like poof. It's real quiet. That's not how silencers are. I mean, guns are really loud. They'll ruin your hearing. But even with a silencer on your average pistol, it is very, very loud and could eventually damage your hearing too. So these are just things that the way Hollywood portrays them and not what they are in real life, two different things. All right, let's talk about this. This has come up over the past week, and I'm just going to cover the topic in general. There's been an issue about Unfound's work and other programs wanting to use our work, and why I say no to that. First of all, for the record, the answer is always no. Just from now, I'm just going to get that out to take away the drama from this conversation. When other programs want to use an interview that Unfound has done, the answer is always no. I'm going to get into why, but I'm giving you the conclusion first. That's the way it's today. That's the way it's going to be tomorrow. That's the way it's going to be next week, next month, next year, next decade, next century, next millennium. Now, why? The reason is this. First of all, you have to understand that among other programs, in fact, Anthony, who's going to be on this Friday from crimeblogger1983.blogspot.com, we talk about this all the time, about people ripping our information off. He gets ripped off in the blog. He does a blog where he puts up original material, original writing. He has a subscription to newspapers.com. He finds the articles. He cuts them out. He puts them on his page. He talks to many family members, and then other people will come along, rip his information off, and put it on their own blog. That happens. That happens to Unfound too. So me saying no to people over the last 4 years has not stopped people from ripping Unfound off. Although to my knowledge, I don't know if they've actually ever used any recording, anything part of any actual podcast episode, the audio. But the reason it's no is because as soon as I say yes, Everything is out of my control. They can use that interview for any purpose. They're not going to listen to me. I mean, it's either yes or no. It's not going to be a qualified yes. It's not like I can say to them, yes, you can use the episode, but I get final approval on your production of it and everything. No host, no person out there is going to go for that. So it's either, yes, I approve it totally, no matter, and whatever they're going to do, or no, you don't have my permission at all. Zero. And because once I give permission, then whatever they do with it, I'm responsible for. And if it turns out like crap, the first question is going to be, Ed, why did you let that other program use their interview? In addition, when people agree to be on Unfound, they understand one thing, that their words are going to be heard in total, every single word except for the mistakes. The interview will play as it is recorded. If I interview them for 2 hours, the interview goes for 2 hours. If the interview goes for 3 hours, like with Tom Brown's mother, Penny, it plays for 3 hours. I don't edit for content. I don't rearrange the recording to make it look like my guests said things that they didn't. Whereas other people, they don't do interviews like that, and they don't think the same way. And in fact, I can tell you many guests who have been on programs like Disappeared. They'll be interviewed for 2 hours. The TV show will use 10 minutes. To me, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's not a real interview. And so when I would happen to say yes, it's totally out of my control. And I don't want that. I'm here to protect the integrity of the interviews that we do for the program. And it's always going to be that way. I would also add this. It's not like I have a monopoly on my guests. They are welcome to talk to anybody. And they do. They've been on other programs before they were on Unfound. They've been on programs after they went on Unfound. And I tell them, you do, what you got to do. There is nobody that is that is getting in the way of them talking to anybody. I surely am not. So anybody that wants to cover a disappearance that Unfound is covered, they can go find the guests on Unfound and talk to them for themselves. Now, I realize that it's a little difficult if you want to cover the disappearances of Tyler Stice, of Kimberly Norwood, of Donna Jean Cap, because those guests are deceased. But you know what? There are other people who are now out there representing those disappearances and those families. There are. Maybe not as well as the guests that I talked to, but we have to remember a lot of these deaths are recent. And so, whereas those people have been doing it for years, and now these new people, they've only been doing it for a little bit of time, and they're trying to catch up. For example, in Kimberly Norwood's disappearance, now her sister is responsible because Janice died earlier this year. So I know that makes it a little difficult, but they are out there if you want to find them, if you want to put in the time. But that's my attitude. We do interviews. The guests agree to appear on Unfound. They can agree to appear on other programs, and I hope they do. And I hope the interviews go fantastically. But my job is to protect the integrity of this program, because I will ultimately be responsible if I say yes to somebody and then they butcher the interview, splice everything together. Instead of it being 2 hours, they put it down to 20 minutes and do whatever else. And it's not like they have to tell me what they're doing. It's their program. And I respect that. They have control over their stuff. I have control over my stuff. And that's why the answer is no. I would also add that here at Unfound, we've been doing this for over 4 years. We don't take anybody else's material. I know that I give Megan good credit, and now summary of the case brought to you by my friend Megan Good's website, charlieproject.org. But I really don't copy what she has written. In fact, sometimes we do summaries and the case isn't even on Megan's site. Everything written during an episode of Unfound is original. The questions that I ask, the guests are original. The summary I do at the beginning, the summation I do at the big end, original. All original material, because that's what you're supposed to do as a reporter. So it's an issue of losing control of material and knowing that if you say yes, there's probably a good possibility that somebody else is going to mess it up. And then your guest is going to be ticked off. And then Unfound's reputation is ruined. And that makes it harder to get people to come on the program and harder for me to help them. That's the way it works. That is the logical progression of all of it. All right. It doesn't. And if you're saying, even if 48 hours or Dateline, the answer is yes, or the answer is no. The answer is yes. I would not allow them to use the interviews either. I would have to say, no, I politely decline. And here's why. Because we know those programs are only 44 minutes. Well, I've done a 2-hour interview. How do you think they're going to fit 2 hours into 43 minutes? They can't. They're not. Whereas I believe that every single second of every interview that we've done is important. We get to know the missing person. We get to know what's going on. We get all the ins and outs, the technical questions, the phone situation, the Facebook situations, pings, suspects, all sorts of things, video. It's all important. And I would hate somebody to take that interview and take stuff out because they think it's not important. And even if they're like, well, I'm going to use the whole thing, you never know what it's going to end up. You never know what they're going to do with it. And they have no responsibility to tell me. I'm not responsible for them. They can tell me anything. So that's the way it is. I don't ask other people for material, so I don't expect people to ask for material from Unfound. I just keep my eyes on my own work. That's all I do. Now, there's been another thing that's popped up. It's the idea that I've done this. I do this because I'm competing with other programs, which is idiocy. Okay. If anybody knows me, I've talked about it on the live show. I think I've written about it in at least one of the books. Maybe it's come up in the think tank. I don't know if it's ever come up in any of my conversations with Dr. Grace Telesco, but simply put, I don't listen to other true crime programs. I don't. Why? I don't have the time. The only things I know about other programs is what my assistants tell me. Who are they? Emily, Cherie, Carrie, Heather, Eric, Natasha. Whatever they're listening to out there, sometimes something will get back to me. They'll say, Ed, do you know about this? Even when it comes to recent true crime events, disappearances and murders that end up in the news. Usually I don't know about them. And I can tell you that my assistants are much more informed in recent happenings, in disappearances and murders, etc., than I am. And I have no problem with that. Good for them. I'm glad they're keeping their eyes out there. I just don't have any time to do that. So it's hard for me to compete with other programs when I don't even know what they're doing. I'm not competing. If I were competing, I think I would be keeping tabs on them. I don't listen to them. And it's not because I'm arrogant or anything else. I just keep my eyes on my own work. As an example, there's The Vanished, hosted by Marissa. I don't know her. I've never talked to her. I couldn't tell you, except for Angela Green, which I've been told she also covered recently, just like we did, and that was a complete coincidence. I didn't know about that. Other than that, I could not tell you one disappearance she covered this entire year. I know John Lorden. I think he is a good guy. I enjoyed being on his game show back in May. A lot of fun. I'd love to do it again sometime. I have no idea about any disappearance or murder or anything else that he has covered over the last year. I know that might boggle your mind, but it's the truth. I even think so much of John that some people will, hey, will you cover this murder? And I said, we don't do that. But you know what? You find John online, maybe he can help you out. He does good work. He's a good guy. I trust him. Go find him. It's just not something that we do. So I think enough of John to send good work, good people to him. That's how much I think of him. I couldn't tell you what he's doing. I'm friends with Justin, although I've not talked to him from Generation Y. And I was with, I can't remember a blank, but the other host of Generation Y, I know Cherie or somebody's going to help me out with that. I apologize. Was on that game show that I was on John's channel. I hear they do a good program. I don't know what the heck they're doing. I get along with both of those guys. I don't know what they're doing. So it's hard to say that I hold back Unfound's work because I'm competing with these people. Don't you have to know what other people are doing if you're competing with them? Moreover, I've said that for a long time. I'm not going to say since day one, but I've said we need more missing persons programs. You know why? Because there's like 100,000 missing persons cases in the United States that are unsolved. And I know that Unfound is not going to get to all of them. We may not even get to 1% of them, but we're going to work hard. We'll do our best. So we need more missing persons programs, good ones. Does that sound like somebody that's competing with anybody? No. In addition, although it's not happened recently, I've had other people come to me. Ed, what do I got to do to start a good podcast or true crime podcast? Now, to my knowledge, off the top of my head, I can only think of one person who's actually followed through to the point of actually having a podcast and still has it today. But I give them the best advice that I can. I don't tell them to stay away from it. I don't blow them off because I'm afraid of the competition. I don't tell them, oh, no, you don't want to do this. Here's what I tell them. You do a program that's representative of you. Do not give in to fads. Do not give in to what's trendy or anything else. Okay? Don't worry about reviews when you get started. In fact, don't ever worry about reviews. Ever. You'll know you're doing a good program when people listen to it and they want to help. That is the sign of a good program. Because you know why? People only want to be associated with winners. They don't want to be associated with losers in anything, not just podcasting. And I feel so fortunate to have the assistants that I do. And I give them all the credit in the world. They are very helpful. I don't know where I'd be without any of them. But I think they're here and they continue to work hard for the program, even though they are volunteers, because they believe in what we're all doing here and we're doing good work. And that they continue to stick around, even despite having me for a boss, shows me that they have high character, high integrity, and they get everything that goes on here. That's the sign that you're doing a good program, not what kind of reviews you get. When people are actually willing to put their names and be associated publicly with your program, that's when you know you're doing good work. Not when people can, go to iTunes and say, a fake name, True Crime Fan, 5 stars. Anybody can do that. So that's Unfound. And I appreciate that this has popped up recently because it seems that was unclear to a lot of people. Why Unfound? Why I, as the person who holds all the copyrights and everything, does not allow Unfound's work to go to others. Some people may say, well, don't you want to spread the word? Don't you want to help others? I do, but I believe in doing original work. And in fact, I would say one of the big problems that we have in true crime is that too many people just take other people's work. And that's how, not lies, but erroneous facts continue to get recycled and recycled and recycled and recycled because nobody's doing any original work. They're just going to somewhere and saying, oh, this must be true. And they reprint it. This is why often, I wouldn't say every week, but this is why often when we cover a case, you'll find out something that has been recycled over and over and over and over for years. And then I talk to the guest the first time and they'll say, no, that's not true. And you know why that happens? Because people are just ripping off other people. Whereas people were doing original work, going to the original sources, then these things would go away pretty fast. In addition, it very well may be that somebody comes along and wants to do interviews and wants to talk to some of the guests that have been on Unfound. And instead of asking me for the recordings, they go talk to the people themselves. And maybe those people even do better interviews than I do. God bless them. I got no problem with it. I'm just trying to do my best. That's my attitude. So it does seem to me that there have been some people out there that see the actions that I take and then infer things from them instead of just asking me why I chose to do what I did. Chose to do what I did. And I'm easy to find. I'm the easiest guy to find in true crime. You know why? Because this is all I do. I don't have a girlfriend. I don't have kids. I don't have pets. Okay? I live by myself. I do this 24/7. I'm always on Facebook. My Gmail account is always open. I'm the easiest guy to find there is in true crime. Outside of me just knocking at your front door, other than that, I'm pretty easy to find. I'm not that easy to find, like being right outside your door, but pretty close to that. You can ask me any question about Unfound you ever want to. Don't take other people's word about my intentions or anything else. Just come talk to me and we could talk about anything. Why do you do this, Ed? I'll tell you. Now, if it's regarding a certain case and information that's kind of behind the scenes, then I'm probably not going to be able to talk about that. But as far as the production of the program, the reason that we do things, for example, why are all these episodes 2 hours long? We'll talk about that. Because it's rare. Most other programs don't do that. I'm easy to be an open book. We have nothing to hide here. We really don't. I think that my assistants would tell you that the person you see on this live show is the exact person I am behind the scenes. I think that if you could talk to my disc golf buddies who I see at tournaments or on Sunday mornings, they'd say, you know what? The guy you see on live show, that's pretty much the guy he is in person. And some of my guests who have met me in person, Lisa Kassoon, Joyce Rivatuza, who I don't think's in here tonight, they will tell you they've met me in person. The person that they met in person is the person exactly on this program. So, and that's why one of my main tenets from day one and starting Unfound is that you have to do a program that is representative of you. Your personality, your perspective, your life experiences, and what you want to hear in a program. Don't go with what other people are doing just because you think that works. Because if you do what somebody else is doing and you're doing according to their own ideas and things, you're going to get burned out and it's going to become a grind. Whereas if you do something that's very natural to you, I don't know how, success, hit and miss, but it'll be very comfortable to you and you will enjoy it and you will be helping other people. So those are the two topics. Unfound's work on why we don't give it out, because we never know what's going to happen if we do give it out. Once again, it's, as I told Cherie or I think all of my assistants, either yesterday or the day before. There's a vast difference between Unfound being ripped off and somebody using that material, because I can distance myself from that. I can say, you know what? I didn't give them permission to do that. And trust me, myself, Anthony, a crime blogger, 1983, we've been ripped off both enough that we could spend the rest of our lives in court for going after people for plagiarism. It's just not worth our time. Seriously. But it's much easier for us to distance ourselves and say, you know what? They don't have permission to do that, but I don't know what I can do about it. But just be clear, I did not give them permission. They didn't ask, but we didn't have. In contrast to, I gave some pretty permission, and then the interview is put in some program, and it's, it's not very good. And then people start questioning, is Ed really looking out for his own material? Is he looking out for Unfound's material? Is he looking out for the guests? And that's not a conversation I want to get into. Because guess what? I would be the one that's wrong. So the answer is always no. Do your own work. The answer is no today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, next decade, next century, next millennium. And as far as the competition thing, I don't pay attention to it. I don't. The only reason I even know about numbers for Unfound is because they're right in front of my face and I can't avoid them on Podomatic and iTunes and elsewhere. Otherwise, I would not look. We gauge the program by one standard, trying to move cases forward and solving disappearances, helping others solve disappearances, helping our guests solve disappearances. That's the only standard. The only one. I haven't been on iTunes in 3 years to check to see what the reviews are, if we're in the top 200 or whatever else. I couldn't even tell you. I don't even care. In fact, Natasha will tell you she sent me an email with some reviews of the program recently, and I just responded to her, don't send me that. I don't care. Not important. I know that's really weird compared to everybody else. We just do things differently. We're just a quirky program. I don't know what to tell you, which is probably a symbol of me also being quirky. I'm a very quirky guy. All right. Let's go to one more thing. Getting off of that. Leonard Moses. Have you heard of him? He was caught recently. And this kind of resonates with me because I'm from the Pittsburgh area. It's about 40 minutes away. He's been on the run since 1971. He committed first-degree murder, was convicted of it. And in 1971, he had gotten some sort of release, in simpler times, I guess, first-degree murder, and he was allowed out of his cell to go to a funeral of somebody in his family. Well, he escaped, and he's been on the run for 49 years. He was finally caught, and turns out Leonard Moses had changed his name to Paul Dickson, Dickson, and he was a traveling pharmacist. Well, how did he get caught? He got caught stealing from one of his, I don't know if it was another pharmacist, a pharmacy, somebody he was working with, some oxycodone or hydro, one of those opiates that we know is trafficked and addictive. We got caught stealing, and it was the pills themselves were only worth like $43 or something. Well, he got caught stealing them, and they fingerprinted him. And once it was put into the database, it turned out that it pinged, of course, red flag in Pittsburgh. Hey, that's that guy that escaped 49 years ago. And now he's going to be brought back to jail to serve out the rest of his sentence that he should have been serving since 1971. So I think what this shows is that people can disappear. If they walk off, if they work at it hard enough, if they have a plan, if they are motivated enough. And of course, in Leonard's case, he would have been very motivated. He didn't want to go back to jail. And he was a traveling pharmacist. So I guess he got some sort of education over that time. I don't know what he did about social security number, et cetera. There's no details on that. But I guess it can be done. And we can't rule it out. Now, he did disappear in 1971, so it's a little different, maybe a little more difficult. Could somebody do that in 2020 with... It's probably a lot more difficult now, but I think that it just shows that it can be done. One more story where it shows it can be done. Now, the other point that pops up is he was in jail for first-degree murder. Are we to believe for the last 49 years that he didn't commit any crimes other than this thing that he eventually got caught for this year? And I think this is relevant because recently we just covered the disappearance of Rouse Chapman. And the point that I brought up, other people brought it up, is that maybe one of the reasons we don't believe Rouse is around anymore is because he hasn't popped up on the police radar. Can we really believe that he could stay out of jail for the last 7 years? And I think the overwhelming answer was no, we thought that he'd get in trouble. Well, it seems that Leonard Moses, first-degree murderer, somehow was kept off out of the police view for 49 years until he was fingerprinted this year. If he had been caught in any preceding years, he also would have been fingerprinted, and he would have popped up, let's say 1996, 2002. So I guess it is possible for people, if they were involved in crime, to stop committing those crimes in an effort to stay missing and stay out of the limelight and stay away from the police or whoever else. I think I did post that in the group. If you'd like to read that story in total, it comes from triblive.com in Pittsburgh. So I think we're going to have a lot of comments about... let's see what some people had to say here before I go to the case for this Friday. Carrie says, now Carrie is one of the assistants. I think it is an excellent idea to keep your work to Unfound exclusively. Saves Unfound from having words twisted. Carrie, they want the credit for the work. They need to do the work. Point blank. So true, Kelly. Harry, if they want to use it, just share it and give Unfound the credit. Santa Barbara. Shuri, what's to stop these people from splicing a sentence together and changing the truth as it was told? A very good example, Shuri. It crosses my mind often. That's why the answer is no, and it'll always be no. Shuri, I've seen a lot of programs that have no guests, lots of information, but not one single source. Odd. Carrie, we have discussed my opinion of no source, Shuri. Mandy, that's why it's my favorite. Real guests. The others sound like they are just reading an article. Charlotte Miller agrees. Thank you, Charlotte. Carrie, gives the opportunity to ask questions that maybe the guest didn't even think about. Carrie, how can you compete with another show when I don't know any other show that does shows like Unfound? Well, The Vanished is kind of like they do nothing. Marissa does nothing but disappearances. But from what I know about the program, and like I said, I don't even know the disappearances that she's covered this year, except for Angela Green. I think she covered that, right? I know that the format's a little different. I know that she tries to keep the length of the programs around an hour or something, I think. Whereas for me, time limit means nothing. I think the Cameron Remmer episode from almost a year ago was like 4 hours long. I don't care. Carrie, you find out about most of them from us. Yeah, the breaking stories. Yes. Charlotte, I've never seen another show like Unfound. Heather, he won't even listen to them when we ask him to. Kind of true. Charlotte, some of them just sound like they are reading the story. It's ridiculous to say it's a competition because audio wasn't shared. Truth. Deidre, yes. Charlotte, one of them hosts of True Crime All the Time. Kevin was really sick. Sorry to hear that. That's horrible. Carrie says, you have offered to help with podcasts, blogs, everything. I'm always here to help. Always. And for as long as I've been involved. Thank you, Carrie. Shri, can't help with you, Gen Y podcast host, because I've never heard any episodes. None. I think I respect that you keep it. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you, Charlotte. Aaron there. Thank you, Carrie. Aaron. Yes, I apologize. If Aaron listens to this, I didn't know his name. I apologize. Aaron and I were on the game show on John Lorden's channel back in May. I think it was May of this year, May 2020. Great time. Would love to do it again. I apologize for forgetting his name. Charlotte says, I like the lengthy Unfound programs because they go more in depth than others do. We like to be in depth. Carrie says, trust us. What you see is what you get with Ed. I think, Carrie, are you saying that a little derogatively? It's true. I have, I guess I only have one volume. Nuckin' Futz. That's funny. I've been listening to Ed for quite some time now, and I've never once questioned Ed's level of integrity. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, Carrie, we do see all the comments, though. Charlotte, I respect. Thank you. Thank you, Ellie. Yes, we do. And it's very hard to bite your tongue reading through a lot of the comments. Yes. And what do I say? I've told this to people. I know that there are bad comments about Unfound out there. My assistants do tell me about some of them. And I just say, don't feel that you need to, there's no reason to get into these arguments with people, really. Anything that I think I need to say, I can just say it here on a Wednesday night and clear everything up. But I appreciate those people who feel motivated to do that. I deeply, deeply, deeply appreciate it. I really, really do. I just never want anybody to feel like they have an obligation to do so. I do not believe that you have an obligation to do that. That you do it, I deeply thank you, but I do not expect it. Okay? But I do deeply, deeply appreciate it. Thank you. You are a hot-headed one, Heather. Yes. Carrie. Ellie says, I believe in you, just searching for the truth. Ellie, I'm near LA, would love to meet you. And I know you are about solving. You're near LA. Well, unfortunately, I don't know if you're talking to me, Ellie, but I don't live near LA. I live in Clearwater Beach, Florida. I used to live in Las Vegas. I would never live in LA, although I have friends who live there. But I know one of them is thinking about getting the heck out. But if you're near LA, I hope it's a beautiful evening there, Ellie. Carrie, not derogatory at all. I mean it. You are the goofy self on camera. I am goofy. That's true. I'm totally absent-minded professor. Absolutely. If you ever look up an INTP, I'm a big believer in the Myers-Briggs personality classifications. It comes from Carl Jung, the psychiatrist. I've taken the Myers-Briggs test, and I'm always an INTP. If you look up INTP and read everything about it, that is me. Absolutely 100%. If you were to meet me in person, that is me. No doubt about it. All right, let's go to the disappearance we will be covering this Friday. And that is the disappearance of Gayla Schaper, Schaper. She disappeared on June 29th, 1979. And she disappeared from Moscow, not Russia, Moscow, Idaho. So this will be our fourth disappearance from Idaho. And the guest will be, being that I spoke about him a couple times already tonight, Anthony from crimeblogger1983.blogspot.com. I'd like to have him on the program once a year, and he'd not been on the program since October of last year, 2019. So he joins Unfound again, and he had written about Gayla's disappearance earlier this year, and I spoke to him about a month ago saying, hey, I think it's about time you come back on the program. He said, sure, love to. It'll be his fourth appearance. And I picked that one out, and that's what we talked about, Gayla's. You should also know that Anthony, at least to start the conversation, we talk a lot about his process, about him starting his blog, how he goes from finding a case to it actually appearing on his website. And I hope that'll be helpful to anybody that is thinking about starting their own true crime blog. But Anthony, of course, did a great interview. This, however, is a disappearance, and the title of it is Not What It Seems. And the reason is that this, I think, at least at the beginning, is going to strike you as like Angela Green's disappearance or Marian Hurley's, in that a husband has a story and it is very, very thin. And that's the way it was for quite a few years. And then something happened in the 1990s to kind of maybe change that. I'm not totally convinced one way or another, but something happened that brought other possibilities into the picture. So you will hear about that on Friday. Once again, Gayla Schaper, she is in NamUs. She is on the Charlie Project site. And I would, of course, first urge you to go to crimeblogger1983.blogspot.com to read what Anthony wrote about her disappearance when he made that entry earlier this year. Please read it because, of course, it will be very relevant when you hear his interview on Friday. Once again, it's Gayla Schaper. The title of the program, that episode is going to be Not What It Seems. June 29th, 1979, from Moscow, or is it Moscow, Idaho. And the guest is Anthony from crimeblogger1983.blogspot.com. So that's it. That's all I got. Let's see. We need to... Thank you, Satinby. I appreciate it. Thank you, My Memories. I deeply appreciate it. Thank you. I'm not, as you know, I love the appreciation and the thanks and everything else. I really, really do. Just doing our work. That's what we're doing. I'll continue to say that. I know that's hard to believe because I know enough to know that other podcast hosts, probably more a little sociable. They want to go to CrimeCon. They make their reservations months, if not a year in advance, or however that works out. They're looking to really go there and everything. And I've told you about CrimeCon. That's not really, my thing. Just not. I don't mind meeting listeners. I don't mind meeting guests, but I like more personal settings. I love getting together. In fact, we're supposed to make it happen in the next couple of weeks with Lisa, Chip Campbell's sister, who I've met many times now. I like those more personal settings, just sitting in a restaurant, talking about things, just chilling out. That's more me. Crowds, among other reasons about CrimeCon that I don't have time to go into. I've talked about that in the past. But I just realized that I'm a little different. I realized that. All right. So what do we talk about? No disc golf this past weekend. No disc golf this coming weekend. But as I already said, I'm going to DeBerry, Florida, after Thanksgiving. Beautiful days here. Went to Costco. Dad had COVID, but he's fine. Got new disc golf shoes. Marian Hurley poll. Jennifer Kesse, we talked about Unfound's work, about permitting others to use interviews and why the answer is always no. Talking about whether I view other programs as competition, which couldn't be further from the truth. Dr. Chris Telesco, tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget, right here on YouTube on their channel. Unfound Now, Mandy Stokes, Spotify issues, Leonard Moses. And I did take some questions, but only had one prepared question from Paula tonight. So that's all we got. It was a pleasure. Love it. Love talking to all of you. Thank you all for tuning in. As Carrie said, do not forget to like this video. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel. And you'll hear me on Friday. Good night.